Hello everyone, this is part 2 of the Chuteside Job setup videos. So I'm going to show you how to use sorting, on the fly rules, and the Windows tab along the top. So first, when we go to sorting, you can create some new sort protocols, and you can do that by hitting the plus button down here. There's also a few preset ones for items that you might need frequently. So flag duplicate RFIDs in the job, flag animals not in the default lot, flag a withdrawal, or weight sort into pens, and you can specify the number of groups. So if you had like a light, a heavy, and a medium, you could use 3 groups or 2 groups for a light and a heavy. But I'm just going to kind of walk through the ones that are already set up. So on this first one here, flag duplicate RFIDs, as you saw below, that's a preset one. Now if we double click on it, it opens up the sort protocol. We've got the name and then some options. So sorted into pens or lots. In this case, you're probably not ever going to do that, especially with duplicate RFIDs, but when you're getting into like a weight sort, you might want to use these functionality. Then over here you have your sort groups. So you can give those a name by just clicking once and then clicking again, and it'll highlight and you can change the name of it. The default will be unique RFID, as most animals won't have duplicates, but in the rare case that they do, you want to know about it. So you could also add extra sort groups by just hitting the plus or removing them by removing the minus. Next, the sort criteria. Again, this is built into the default flag duplicate RFID option, but has RFID tag, yes or no, and RFID tag is a duplicate in the job, yes or no. So it's going to look at both of those criteria to make sure, for one, it has an RFID, and then if it does, is it the same as another animal? And then we've got our protocol variations. So once you've finished all the protocol setup, you would hit update. This list would fill, and then you just double click on these, and based on the criteria. So has the RFID tag and it's a duplicate. If these are both yes, then you're going to want your sort group to be duplicate RFID. Otherwise, it'll be unique. So when you're all done with setting up the sort protocol, you'd hit save. And then you can see your 2 sort groups that we created in the protocol setup. So if it's got a unique RFID, there are no subjobs, nothing happens. If it's got a duplicate RFID, there is a message displayed showing this animal's RFID tag is the same as another animal in this job. Now you can modify this to say whatever you want, but there will be a huge blinking red window that's going to show up in front of the on the computer screen. So the guys will, ideally they will notice that, and they'll know to figure out, okay, why does it have the same RFID? Did I skip ahead an animal when I shouldn't have, and we just ran this animal through Fusion twice, that kind of thing. And then give it a label so what the guys see. It's a duplicate RFID. Next, we'll look at the flag wrong lot sort protocol. So the sort group default is expected. If it's the wrong lot, same thing. They get a huge message saying it's the wrong lot. Figure out what happened. There are other options you could add down here. So we'll look at these a little bit later, but there are different options that you could use once the sort criteria is matched. So for sex, I think it will make a little bit more sense. We've got a steer or a heifer. If it's a steer, you're going to do nothing. If it's a heifer, you're going to give it Estroplan, is what the label name is, but the actual drug is Lutalize. And this is the same as we saw in the previous video of sub-job setup. So they can change the product during the job setup, and they're going to use the same amount for every animal, 5 cc's. And the billing category is processing. So that's an example of a sub-job that you would add based on sex. Another good example of a sort criteria would be bulls or steers. So if you have some animals coming through the chute and you're going to do a check on them, if they're a bull, you're probably going to add a sub-job of castration, so castration band, whatever your protocols are, you have to work with your vet on that. And then if it's a steer, you might want to add a sub-job of a belly nut. You know, if you notice on the steer it's got a belly nut, then you can alert the guys with a flag to check for that, and then they can deal with that accordingly. So these are kind of how sort protocols work. We'll look at them and how they actually function at Chuteside in another video. but that's kind of the basics of it. So if we wanted to add one for a weight sort in depends, and we did 3 groups, you can see the groups are A, B, C, but to modify this, we're going to double click, change this. We're going to leave the name as weight sort in depends, and sort in depends. Also make it the home pen if these animals are going to be staying there. You might want to have that selected. And we want to see the running totals in the heads-up display so we know how many animals are in each pen. And then our sort groups, you might relabel these as light, medium, and heavy. And the default, we might say it's light, you might want to say it's medium, kind of depends on what you're up against. So then Fusion knows to look at the scale weight, and it has some values in here just as defaults, and you can go ahead and modify these. So your first number is probably going to be your animal is greater than or equal to 0. And all the animals are going to fit within that criteria, but then you would have animal is greater than or equal to 600 pounds. So anything over 600 pounds is going to be a medium, and anything over 1,000 pounds is going to be a heavy. So we've got those 3 breaks in the sort protocol, and then we go to our protocol variations, and you can see these didn't update. So just hit update in the bottom right corner, and it'll pull those values in. And then we just have to specify our sort groups. This one is already medium, and then heavy. And when you hit save on that, it will update over here. And depending on the sort group, you might also want to give add a subjob, specific drugs, or specific inputs, or maybe a relocation. So that's pretty good basic overview of sorting. If you have more questions, please let us know. The next tab is on the fly rules. So with any job, depending on what's going on, they might want to be able to do something on the fly. So I think the easiest example of this is giving it an RFID tag. Say the animal comes into the chute, it doesn't have an RFID tag, you need to give it a new one. So you give it a new one, but you also need to make sure that it's billed out. So if they've given it an RFID tag by just adding a new subjob on the fly, then you're going to change your on the fly rules so that the input added is an RFID tag, amount 1, and it's billed out properly. Not often would you have other, this is a very specific application, and you looking at on the fly rules is a little bit tricky. So same thing, ask us if you have questions, but this is a good way just to make sure things get billed out. Next, we can modify the window positions. Now this is pretty straightforward, but also kind of unnecessary. So for the most part, it should fit and look okay on your Chuteside computer, but if you want to modify a little bit, change the size of the windows, change the position, you could do all that here. And I'm not going to go into huge detail on it, but feel free to play around with that and see how it looks at Chuteside. So when you're all done with your job setup, you just hit save, and then we'll go into Fusion Chuteside and run the job and see how those different parameters and subjobs affect sort protocols as well as billing.